In a dimly lit room heavy with tension, Jin-tae stood alone in his suit, silently wrestling with thoughts that deepened the pensive mood. In a sullen office heavy with tension, Han stood with unwavering determination before Jin-tae, who watched him cautiously from behind his desk. Now seated at a nearby desk, Han's determined stance softened into a pensive silence as he contemplated his next move in the dim light. Across the polished surface of his desk, Han leaned forward with a grave expression and caution that every decision demanded careful consideration of its consequences. In the muted half-light of early morning, Jin-tae's side profile stood out against the quiet backdrop, his features etched with a seriousness that revealed a mind lost in silent, pensive reflection. With intense concentration, Han's hand hovered over the document, poised to grasp a minute but significant detail that demanded his full attention. Suddenly, Han's frustration erupted as he slammed his fist onto the desk, the sharp sound shattering the tense silence that had built while he scrutinized the document. Jin-tae suddenly grabs Han's wrist with. Han recoiled in shock as Jin-tae seized his arm, the confrontation crackling with unspoken anger. Han stood frozen, worry clouding his features as he processed the troubling realization that events had taken an unexpected turn. Jin-tae's determined gaze cut through the haze as he revealed there was something important he needed to share. Han's face filled the frame, a single bead of sweat betraying the tense hesitation that held him silently in place. In the dim glow of a shadowy office, Han sat rigidly on the edge of his chair, anxiety etched across his face as tension thickened the air around him. Han clutched a document tightly, his anxious gaze fixed forward as he demanded to know why someone was following him and what they truly wanted from him. In a dimly lit room heavy with tension, Jin-tae stood with arms crossed, confronting Jin-tae, whose silent, guarded posture revealed the weight of unspoken words between them. In the muted light, Jin-tae appeared in a close-up profile, his weary eyes reflecting a tense exhaustion as he let out a heavy breath, silently admitting his fatigue. In the hush of a shadowed room, Han sat upright in his chair, the somber air pressing close as he stared ahead in silent contemplation. Han stood tall in his suit and tie, gazing upward with a spark of determination as if bracing himself to face whatever challenge awaited. In a dimly lit room heavy with tension, Jin-tae sat alone, his pensive gaze lost in silent contemplation. In a starkly lit office heavy with tension, Jin-tae stood resolute before the imposing desk where Han sat in calm authority, the silence between them charged with unspoken confrontation. Han sat with unwavering authority behind his desk, his determined gaze fixed on Jin-tae, who shifted uneasily as Han insisted he take responsibility for what had transpired. Jin-tae, composed and meticulous, calmly adjusted the black tie on his suit, setting a quietly formal tone for the day ahead. In a dimly lit room charged with tension, Jin-tae stood over Han with unwavering authority, his grip tight on Han's collar. Bathed in gentle light, Han stood in quiet reflection, his calm gaze lifting upward as a subtle smile traced his lips. In a dimly lit corridor heavy with tension, Jin-tae seized Han by the lapels, his anger radiating as Han stared back in startled disbelief. Light spilled through a barely opened door as Jin-tae, tense and alert in his suit, paused on the threshold while Jin-tae sat in silence at his desk, the air between them thick with suspense. In the quiet solitude of a dimly lit room, Han sat hunched in a chair, his hands shielding part of his face as heavy thoughts weighed on his mind. In the quiet, polished hallway, Han and Jin-tae strode side by side with purposeful calm, their briefcases in hand, while a third figure lingered ahead, his back turned to them. Han stood quietly beside Jin-tae, his posture heavy with unspoken sorrow while a somber silence settled between them. As the silence deepened, Han's side profile revealed a pensive stillness, his eyes reflecting the weight of thoughts he dared not voice. In a dimly lit room heavy with tension, an aggressive figure seized Han by the shoulders, his intimidating grip drawing silent scrutiny from Jin-tae, who watched the confrontation unfold with calm detachment. Early morning light filtered through the car windows as Han, calm and contemplative, guided the vehicle down the empty road, his focused gaze steady while the world outside rushed by in a silent blur. In the quiet light of morning, Han paused in thought, his fingers brushing through his hair as he quietly murmured Choljiam's name, a reflective weight settling in his gaze. In the stillness of the afternoon, Han stood by a brick wall, his calm gaze fixed on the parked car as a quiet sense of anticipation lingered in the air. Han is in the midst of looking for the key to his home. In the quiet solitude of a dimly lit room, Won-young sat against the cold wall, hugging his knees as a wave of melancholy settled over him. Won-young lunged forward and seized Han by the lapels, desperation flaring in his eyes as the older man stared back in startled disbelief. Won Young's devastated cries shattered the silence, tears streaming down his face as grief overwhelmed him. Han's face tightened with anxiety as fresh beads of sweat traced his jaw, the weight of unexpected news pressing in with suffocating tension. Won Young froze mid-step, surprise etched across his face as he looked up, his hand tightly grasping the arm of Han. Han knelt with concern etched across his face, gently gathering the distressed boy into his arms as a tender hush settled between them. Won Young's tear-streaked face filled the frame as he admitted with trembling sorrow that he had lost control and was deeply sorry. Han knelt before Won Young, his hand steady on the boy's trembling shoulders as a sense of protective concern softened the serious mood between them. Han recoiled in shock as he faced Won Young's, whose guarded posture only deepened the uneasy silence between them. Now, just outside that charged room, Han dropped to his knees at the warm-lit doorstep while Jin-tae towered above him, the unspoken tension thickening in their quiet, unresolved standoff. Han knelt beside a trembling Won Young, his protective embrace offering a wordless promise of safety as concern and tenderness filled the space between them. Won Young stood trembling with anxiety, his fist clenched tightly as he faced Han's silent, unyielding back. On the rain-slick pavement, a single black and red stiletto heel lay abandoned, casting a mysterious shadow that hinted at the secrets left behind. Jin-tae appears before the two of them and asks who's the boy. Jin-tae asks why is the boy here and not with his parents. Jin-tae stood with resolute determination as he pressed the intercom buttons, the weight of anticipation sharpening the serious mood. Won Young stepped forward and pulled Han into a tight embrace, shocking him with the intensity of the unexpected gesture. Hans tells Jin-tae that he's taking him to the police station. Jin-tae tells Han that he'll drive so he shouldn't worry. Moments later, the tension faded into a hush as Won Young's, weary and vulnerable, rested his head on Han's lap inside the quiet car, finding solace in Han's calm, protective embrace. Han held someone close, his protective embrace betraying a deep and silent worry. Han wondered if Jin-tae was really on his side. Han reached out to offer quiet solace as Won Young, overcome by sorrow, leaned into his caring embrace.